So if you are offering your gift on the altar, and there you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled with your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift. Jesus was keenly aware of man's nature. He spoke the truth, and that sometimes ruffled feathers. While disputes were not foreign to him, Jesus never made conflict his goal. His goal was to point to God the Father, remind people of what God wanted, and speak the truth. Conflict was simply the anticipated consequence of exposing unpleasant facts. Jesus knew that in the short term, following him would often lead to conflict. Jesus' eventual goal was to bring peace. Peace with God and peace between neighbors. However, there must be honesty, repentance, and healing before there can be lasting peace. I believe he is reminding us of a critical truth. It makes no sense to give your offering to God and seek His forgiveness if you have enmity with a neighbor and have made no effort to resolve that. Anger blinds us and makes us numb and unable to discern God's voice. In Jesus' view of the kingdom, our relationship with God is entwined with our treatment and response to our neighbor. If you have an unresolved issue with a brother, going to church can wait. It's okay to pray first, but pray about your next step in peacemaking and go. Here, Jesus is reminding us of the importance of dealing with anger promptly and not allowing it to fester. That peace should be our objective is expressed by the author of the Psalms. How good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. But that unity will never exist by simply avoiding conflict and issues. It will only force the splinter to dig in more deeply. David knew that conflict was sometimes unavoidable. His discord with King Saul shows his genuine desire for peace and the reality that it takes two people to actually obtain it. Paul reminds us, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Forgiveness and letting go of anger are critical to life in the kingdom of heaven, but that doesn't mean that conflict will cease to be an issue. You can faithfully forgive and still have conflict. You can love someone and still fail to reconcile with them. Sometimes, even when we honestly try to, we don't recognize that we are the ones at fault. Much conflict falls into gray areas, and our perception of the disagreement may not be correct. In a situation like that, all we can do is honestly pray for God to open our eyes. Most importantly, we need to humbly recognize that we might share in the blame regardless of how right we think we are. The point is never to prove the other person wrong. The point is to lovingly come to a place of acceptance, even if we disagree on the specifics. The other person may not be willing to listen. They may not be ready for peace. This is especially true if we have been impatient, condescending, or self-righteous in our conversations. If we needlessly hurt someone's feelings, it makes reconciliation that much more challenging. Seeking peace doesn't mean that we have to be silent about what we believe is true. Paul tells us, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor. We can disagree, but it must be done as kindly as possible while accepting the other person's decision. That acceptance doesn't even require that we respect their view, but respect that God allows us each free will to make our choices. Even if we believe that we are entirely correct, we should be the first to seek reconciliation. Jesus' message here is especially crucial for the world we live in today. We are in the middle of what has been described as a cold civil war. God doesn't ask me to ignore injustice, dishonesty, bigotry, greed, or any other sin that harms others. However, He does ask me to address those issues as kindly and patiently as possible. Relationships are complicated, but God's Spirit can restore relationships. If I don't see the change in the other person, that's okay, but I must ensure that God has my permission to change me.